but the summit has been cancelled. But my brothers from Jordan and Egypt can say, yes.
In a minute, please. Just, you know, that horrible crime and attack against the hospital in Gaza earlier today is a stark reminder of everyone that what we have been warning against to happen. We have been telling everyone that we're fearful that violations of international humanitarian law is going to happen. We have seen that before, and we have warned everyone to uphold their responsibilities. We have asked the Security Council to uphold its responsibilities. The permanent members have a specific, especially those who have special ties here or there. There should be no conditional support ever. We're asking everyone for having a ceasefire immediately and so on. And speaking now to the issue of the summit, Cairo is hosting the summit as scheduled. We're speaking about the Cairo summit next Saturday, where parties in the region, permanent P5 are invited and are gathered. The Secretary General has confirmed his participation with the view to seek to address the humanitarian aspect of the outgoing war and how to put it to a ceasefire, and as well a very serious attempt to have a political horizon to address the fundamentals of the whole issue. This is what I wanted to say, and of course I add my voice to Ambassador Riyad Mansour in the issue of the accountability. There is no party above international law. No party ever would be, as much as the Arab ministers did condemn attacks on civilians, the same applies. Whoever has perpetrated that horrible crime of today should be held accountable, and we'll work to that end, and we're hopeful that the Council will be up to the responsibility.
Concerning the summit in Egypt, can there be continuous humanitarian assistance to the Palestinians in Gaza without a full and permanent and durable ceasefire?
We're engaging on extensive talks, trying to reach a modality whereby humanitarian access and humanitarian corridors will be secured, with having sufficient space, of course, for humanitarian ceasefire. No humanitarian access would happen, but that is linked to some other issues that has to do with the hostages and so on, and those aspects that has to do with foreigners in Gaza. But we're working around the clock, and Egypt is taking that responsibility very seriously, and we're hopeful. We continue to hope that this will happen soon. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues, for coming. As a chair of the Arab group for this month, I would like to reflect the common Arab position that we are condemning this massacre that took place against innocent civilians. The figures now are talking about 800 to 900 civilians sick and wounded. The medical facility, the medical personnel, all perished in this heinous attack perpetrated by Israel. We call on the Security Council to assume its responsibility and call for a ceasefire, unconditional ceasefire. We also would like to see those who have committed such a crime under international law, such a heinous crime, to be brought to justice. For decades and decades, Israel has, and its the perpetrators of in the Israeli military and political leadership who committed these actions were enjoyed impunity. Not a single one faced justice. This has to change, and this is our common position as an Arab group. We think it is very important that we concentrate, the Security Council concentrate on ceasefire and to allow humanitarian medical access into Gaza, and also at the same time stop any mass transfer of the population, which is one of the intent of those who perpetrated it, is to induce this mass movement. You heard, all of you have heard the Israeli officials in the past few days and past week who called on people to move to the south, and that the facilities, the medical facilities, have to be evacuated. This is a message, and it's not the first time that Israel resorts to this kind of message to induce the mass displacement of population. It happened again and again and again, and it will continue to happen if the international community does not stop it.
سمعنا الآن مطالب عن أهمية المحاسبة. ما إمكانية أن يكون هناك تحرك عربي؟
Importance of accountability. What's the importance of the Arab unity and have one stance and one position to demand ceasefire and stop the aggression? Is there any possibility to have an action or a united Arab position for accountability? Regarding accountability, as Palestine state and as well other Arab countries, we were able, after many efforts, to start investigations in those crimes that have been committed against the Palestinians by Israel, including the ongoing war crime, which is the occupation, as well as the crime of 2014, when Israel perpetrated several crimes against Palestinians. Now the crime is bigger and the scope is bigger, as we've seen today in the massacre of the hospital. So what is required now is to pressure the ICC so that they can expedite the investigations that are still ongoing. There is another side, which is the violation of international law and all the related details that were raised during questions asked by the International Crime Court, and many Arab countries have presented several reports, and we are now finalizing the reports that will be sent to the International Court. And this will be finalized within a week. After that, we will wait from the International Court to set up the time and the date. So this mechanism is ongoing, and we would like to expedite the process, and we want a larger participation from all the Arab countries and our brothers, especially when the second round will start, when the court will announce the dates and who can participate.
Actually has the Arab, this is a question for the Arab group. The United States is the only country.
Okay, that was the Palestinian ambassador to the United Nations, again demanding for a ceasefire. So far, on day 12 of this war, those pleas have been ignored. They condemned the attack on a hospital in central Gaza where 500 people were killed in the already overwhelmed health facility. These are the latest pictures coming out of Maryland, where US President Joe Biden is about to get on a plane and has departed to visit Israel on Wednesday local time. These were just a few minutes ago. He accepted the invitation from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It comes after Secretary of State Antony Blinken went on a diplomatic tour of the region, visiting Israel twice, as well as Egypt, Qatar and Saudi Arabia. I want to bring in Marwan Bashara now, who's Al Jazeera's senior political analyst. He joins us by Skype from London. As always, Marwan, plenty to unpack here. My first question is, how much is the bombing of the hospital this evening a turning point in this war?
Well, it seems, at least for the last few hours, that it is a major turning point. Just listening to the Arab ambassadors to the United Nations speak, that's in and by itself, it's almost comical if it wasn't tragic, in the sense that they did well by coming together and express their condemnation of the attack on the hospital. But only a few days ago, they were all invisible. They were all sort of in a state of self-defense and pretty much confused what to do, as the United States and Western Europe and Israel were really on the offensive. The Arab world, basically, the Arab leaders, basically disappeared. Well, now that it was Israel's turn to carry a gruesome, extreme, violent attack, that the Arab officialdom is back to the fore and clamoring for the microphone in order to express indignation. That's a sign, among others, why there's a turnabout. The cancellation the Quartet Summit, if one can call it that way, between three Arab leaders and the American president. That's another major sign that things are not going well. Of course, the almost uprising that is starting in the Palestinian territories, in Ramallah, Nablus, Jenin, Hebron, and other places against the authority of Mahmoud Abbas, and against the coordination with Israel, and against the indifference to the dramatic violent development in Gaza. That's also a sign that things are turning. So all in all, there's a change, both in tone and perhaps in policies of all those involved.
All right, Marwan, I'm going to hand you over to Resul Sadr, who's joining me on the desk and has obviously covered the Middle East extensively. Resul.
Marwan, great to have you here. Marwan, I suppose we are going through historic moments now because, if I'm wrong, please correct me, but for the first time since the beginning of this crisis, we're seeing Arab leaders coming together and in front of a camera releasing quite a harsh statement, asking for an absolute accountability, an immediate ceasefire, and also, quote, these criminals should be held accountable, and also talking about a common Arab position. So the picture itself, seeing that many of the Arab ambassadors to the United Nations coming together, how significant is that?
It's significant. It's significant mostly not because they're taking a radical position. It's just simply because they are reversing a more defeatist position that they've taken several days ago. The statement of the Arab League foreign ministers was so watered down that it was surprising they would even put it out. They even had to, for the first time in their history, equate between Israel occupation and the Palestinian resistance and the occupied Palestinians. But clearly within 4 days, especially after today's tragic event, and usually it just takes apparently that, it takes a very painful event, an apocalyptical event to get those officials to change their position. But be that as it may, there is a change of tone, and that change of tone is or underlines that there is a turnabout in the events. And I think President Biden, once he lands, he's going to discover that the area is not the same area that he spoke about 2 or 3 days ago when he remained steadfast behind Israel. The Palestinian street is boiling, the Arab street is boiling, and as I've been saying for a number of days now, there's a real synergy between the Palestinian struggle for freedom and the Arab struggle for justice and freedom. And that synergy has come to bear over the last few days when the Arab streets, whenever it was possible, erupted in support of Palestine. And I think that seems to be a destabilizing factor for a number of Arab leaders. And that is pushing them or nudging them to come together to condemn Israel's occupation, Israel's attack on civilian Palestinian target and so on and so forth. So all of this is positive in as far as, it's important to come together for the cause of peace and humanity, and for once, for the Palestinian human rights to be at least put, at equal term with Israel's human rights.
Thank you, Marwan. Quite insightful. So, Emily.
All right, thank you so much. That was Resul Sadr joining me on the desk. Do stay with us. We have all your latest news in just a moment.